The purpose of this recording is to provide exemplification of CEFR level B1 performance for writing. We'll show you 6 examples of test taker work and outline the indicators of performance at the bottom, middle, and top of the B1 band. Table 1 shows the alignment of PTE Academic scores to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or CEFR. The exemplification materials in this resource have been selected using this alignment. The following exemplification materials show responses from test takers who have been classified at each CEFR level based on their PTE Academic writing score. It should be noted that writing scores come from the combination of many test items that measure different aspects of language proficiency. The purpose of these exemplars is to show the range of item responses produced by test takers in different CEFR bands, and to provide indicative evidence of the key features of writing performances across and within CEFR language proficiency bands. At low B1 level, test takers are likely to be able to produce simple, connected texts, giving key information about familiar topics. They will usually have an appropriate range of vocabulary, structures, functional language, and some basic collocations, but may still make basic mistakes, such as tense errors, even in short, simple sentences. This test taker's response is quite typical of low B1 level. They show the ability to discuss a familiar topic, and their essay is appropriately divided into paragraphs. The overall structure of the essay is adequate, but is lacking an effective conclusion. Sentences within the paragraphs mostly flow in a coherent way, due to the use of linking phrases such as first of all and secondly, etc. But the connections between ideas are sometimes unclear. The test taker struggles with more complex sentence structures and frequently shows the limitations of their vocabulary range, for example when they write, "Because if they do not keep fighting, they will be fell away." Despite frequent errors and a lack of precision, it is usually possible to understand the general idea of what they are trying to say. This essay features many characteristics of low B1 level. The test taker obviously has an awareness of the structural and stylistic conventions of this kind of writing. There is an introduction, a reference to research and a conclusion, as well as an attempt at a thesis statement when they write, "There are numbers of reasons will be supported below." This sentence highlights the writer's grammatical and lexical shortcomings, which are typical of test takers at this low B1 level. They can handle simple tenses, but make frequent errors with more complex sentence structures. The essay includes a large amount of repetition, particularly from phrases used in the prompt, which shows the test taker's limited range of vocabulary for discussing this kind of topic. Some of the points made are quite meaningless. For example, "We should have a good use of competition in order to maximum the benefit of competition," but generally each sentence is sufficiently linked to the task prompt. At mid-B1 level, test takers will usually have a good control of basic sentence structures, as well as a sufficiently wide range of vocabulary and functional language for producing structured texts on familiar topics. They are likely to make mistakes when expressing more complex ideas and when dealing with less familiar contexts or forms of writing. This essay is typical of the mid-B1 level, containing elements of both low B1 and high B1 ability. The test taker's strengths lie in their expression of ideas using a range of vocabulary and an appropriate structure. They demonstrate the ability to produce a short, simple essay on a topic of interest, to use language to give and justify an opinion, and to summarize their opinion. All traits of higher B1 level written production. The test taker's weaknesses mainly relate to their grammatical accuracy and sentence structure. There are a number of basic errors, such as frequent comma slices between clauses where linking words should have been used and/or new sentences should have begun. Although the test taker shows the ability to use some more complex sentences accurately, these basic errors prevent a higher score overall. In a similar way to test taker 3, this essay contains elements of high B1 and low B1. In contrast to the previous essay, test taker 4 demonstrates a greater level of control over sentence structure, but includes fewer ideas in their essay, which impacts their overall score. The structure of this essay could also be improved if the content of its first paragraph were divided into first an introduction and then a separate paragraph on the relationship between competition on motivation. There are grammatical issues in the essay's first sentence when they write it may be your private sporting or professional lives. Better phrasing could be, whether that be in our private sporting or professional lives. Despite this, elsewhere the test taker shows good control over simple, compound and complex sentence structures. They also display a sufficiently wide range of vocabulary to convey information and ideas on abstract topics, a trait of higher-level B1 written interaction. At high B1 level, test takers can generally produce texts in a range of formats, providing detailed descriptions, organizing their ideas, giving their opinions, and conveying factual information. Errors that they make with sentence structures and vocabulary choice rarely impede a reader's ability to understand the points these test takers are conveying. This essay is typical of the high B1 level. The test taker demonstrates the ability to produce a short, simple essay on a topic of interest, conveying information and ideas on abstract, as well as more concrete aspects of the question about the value of competition. They write in coherent paragraphs with a logical progression between their ideas. The test taker displays a good level of control over simple and compound sentences, but they rarely attempt complex sentences, and when they do, there are errors, such as it is easy to understand that people who agree with that competition is essential. The test taker is able to give and summarize their opinion, but they do so while using a fairly limited range of vocabulary, often repeating phrases used in the prompt. A wider range of sentence structure and vocabulary would be expected at B2. In a way characteristic of high B1 level, this test taker demonstrates the ability to produce a short, simple essay on a topic of interest, giving, justifying, and summarizing their opinion. In contrast to test taker 5's essay, which is more accurate but less wide-ranging in terms of sentence structure and vocabulary, this test taker shows a good level of control over some complex language and grammatical forms, but also makes some more basic errors, which negatively affect the overall coherence and flow of ideas. For example, at the start of their second paragraph, they write commencing with the positive side that competition is. This test taker displays a suitably wide range of vocabulary for B1 level, with some higher level vocabulary also used, such as paradoxically, detrimental, and initiatives. However, they make errors with idiomatic language, for instance, to think out of the box. There are also a number of spelling mistakes, which impact their overall score.